Good day, everyone. I'm going to continue with the Obama administration scandals. 2011 March. Early March, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton appoints Special Envoy Chris Stevens to handle U.S. operations in Benghazi. 4th of March, CBS News Atkinson exclusively interviews sitting ATF Special Agent John Dodson. He gives a first-hand account contradicting government's denial regarding Fast and Furious. I wonder why. Maybe because it's true. 11 March. The President of the Mexican Chamber of Deputies, in response to reports that the Obama administration was knowingly and willfully allowing the sale and transfer of weapons across the Mexican border, announces this is a serious violation of international law. Well, if it didn't happen, how could it be a violation, right? Right? Just crickets, right? Just crickets. 13 March, Secretary Clinton travels to Paris for a series of meetings with foreign ministers from a group of 8 countries. Bernard Henry Levy is also in attendance to do introductions to the rebel group leaders. She meets with Libyan Transitional National Council leader Mahmoud Jabril and consultants with other foreign counterparts on further UN Security Council action. She secretly adds that aggressive action and not just a no-fly zone will be adequate. The 14th to 16th of March, Secretary Clinton participates in a series of high-level video and teleconferences. She is a leading voice for strong UNSC action in the name of a NATO civilian protection mission. Yeah, sure. A majority of NATO members states refuse to participate because it's probably not a civilian protection mission. This was not why the NATO alliance was founded or continues to exist. That is correct. Clinton meets with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, whose country's veto of the UNSC 1973 could derail any planned intervention. Lavrov was intentionally misled to believe that giving NATO a free hand in Libya could be had in exchange for a Russian free hand in Georgia and Crimea. 15 March. Clinton speaks with Obama by phone as a strong advocate for U.S. intervention. Of course, Obama, who had been weighing arguments from a divided NSC for days, sides with Clinton. You gotta have a puppet with a puppet master. 17th March. Clinton secures a deal with Russia to abstain from vetoing UNSC Resolution 1973, supposedly granting authorization to a few NATO members to take all necessary measures to enforce compliance with the ban on flights and pure no-fly zone. Only 12 of NATO's 28 members participate, changing NATO's defensive nature, founded on a premise that an attack on one is an attack against all, to an offensive mercenary force for hire in the service of private interests and politicians' quest for approval ratings. That's exactly what it was. Clinton wanted bad things to happen so that she could capitalize on it and then prove, quote-unquote, that she was able to be a leader. I don't know if anyone understands what a hero complex is. It's essentially where you go out there, you start a fire so that you can put it out. March 19th. Or excuse me, a little before that. The resolution passes 10-0 with Russia, China, Germany, Brazil, and India abstaining. Basically, all the countries to whom are autonomous. It authorizes a pure no-fly zone. 19 March, Starksey convenes meeting in the Westin Hotel to solicit agreement for the immediate deployment of military aircraft to stop Gaddafi's efforts to put down the rebellion in Benghazi and the establishment of a no-fly zone in the country. Before the meeting is over, French fighter planes attack Gaddafi forces outside Benghazi. Italian and Russian participants protest the French government's insistence on conveying the meeting before agreeing to airstrikes, and then launching strikes before the meeting was over. Listen to that, folks. The French fighter planes launched the strikes before they had even agreed to launch the strikes. Interesting, right? Vladimir Putin later charges Obama and cohorts violating the UN Security Council resolution in Libya when, instead of imposing the so-called no-fly zone over it, it started bombing it too. Think about this. Vladimir Putin, not the bad guy in this situation, telling the UN Security Council that it's not following its own rules. Yep. The early attack so upset the Italian Prime Minister, who signed the friendship pact with Libya, he warned of cutting access to Italian air bases vital to French, British, and American warplanes. Of course. The Washington Post says it nearly broke up the coalition, according to eyewitnesses. Yet the rift was quickly patched thanks to frenzied lobbying effort that kept the coalition from unraveling in its opening hours. That, the source says, was Hillary. So, alright. Let's get this straight. Hillary wanted a problem. She got everybody together to create a problem. The French go in there and bomb them. And then Hillary swoops in there and saves the day. Does that sound like a hero complex? Does that sound like it was planned in any way, folks? Maybe just a little. Just a little. Washington Post later reports the Italian Prime Minister eventually provided air bases as staging grounds for attacks. French officials claim that meeting participants were informed of the operation. The strikes clearly had been planned and coordinated with the knowledge of the United States and the UK. That's what I was saying, folks. That night, the first U.S. airstrikes halt the advance of Gaddafi's forces on Benghazi and target Libya's air defenses. Members of Libya's Christian Coptic community are later decapitated en masse once Secretary Clinton and President Obama's objectives are met. Yeah, you heard that, folks. The members of Libya's Christian Coptic community are decapitated once Secretary Clinton and President Obama's objectives are met. So such is democracy, right? 21st March, Obama announces U.S. forces commenced operations in Libya 2 days earlier, on March 19th, to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe. So you're going to commit a humanitarian catastrophe in order to stop a humanitarian catastrophe. Yeah, circular logic. Secretary Robert Gates warned establishment of a no-fly zone meant attacking Libya. Of course. National Security Advisor Tom Dunnion and Deputy National Security Advisor Dennis McDowell opposed attacking Libya, but Hillary Clinton won the bureaucratic battle to use Department of Defense resources to achieve what's essentially the State Department's objective. And Obama let it happen. United Nations Chapter, Article 2.4. Sorry, folks, I live in East LA, and the riots are getting closer. Again, United Nations Charter, Article 2, Tech 4, prohibits the threat or use of force against territorial integrity or political independence of a member state, and many observers object that Obama's actions violate this prohibition. Again, it's a hero complex. These people are criminals that kill people in order to look good. Congressional Research Services advised that a no-fly zone imposed against a state that has not carried out an attack on its neighbors may consider the imposition of an armed attack. Of course. CRS warns that even if a no-fly zone does not constitute an armed attack, that state and other members of the international community might consider them a violation of the prohibition of that threat or use of force, as well as the customary duty of non-intervention in the affairs of sovereign states. Basically, it meant by them telling Libya that it became a no-fly zone, they were making it clear that it was an act of war. NATO's Supreme Allied Commander, James Stratos, told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee days before President Obama's publicly admitted to intervention that United States intelligence community knew of Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah elements among Libyan rebels. Sure they did. 22 March, Obama appears on Univision to deny that neither he nor Eric Holder authorized Operation Fast and the Furious when his name's all over the thing. 23 March, video of the Italian Prime Minister at his Bunga Bunga party hits American cable news. 24th March, Clinton engages with Stratsky, Cameron, and others to secure the transition of command and control of the Civilian Protection Mission to NATO. She announces the transition in a statement. 26 March, a report from Representative Dennis Kulich corroborates the claim of Franco Beckett's in Italy that the plans to spark the Benghazi rebellion were initiated by French intelligence services in November of 2010. This is what I'm saying, folks. The French start something in collaboration with NATO through Hillary Clinton. This was, we have the documentation. Then she goes in there and saves the day, creates a no-fly zone, French bombs the place, and then she becomes the coalition leader. 18th through 30th of March, Hillary Clinton engages Qatar, Jordan, and the UAE to seek their participation in coalition operations. Over the course of several days, all three devote aircraft to the mission. 29 March, Clinton travels to London for a conference on Libya, where Clinton is the driving force behind the creation of a contact group comprising 30-plus countries to coordinate efforts to protect civilians and plan for post-Gaddafi Libya. She is instrumental in setting up a rotating chair system to ensure regional buy-in. Basically, they're going to divvy up the state's power and control and resources to these other investors. Russia and China accuse the U.S. of exceeding UNSC 1937 mandate. Yeah, Obama administration did do a lot of illegal things. 31 March, Reuters reports President Barack Obama has signed a secret order authorizing covert U.S. government support for rebel forces seeking to oust Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. Obama signed the order, known as a presidential finding, within the last 2 or 3 weeks. Sometime later, before April, Obama intel officials capture and record private communications between Representative Kulich and Libyan official. April 2011. 14th of April, according to Hillary staff email, Secretary of State Clinton travels to Berlin for NATO meetings. Clinton is the driving force behind NATO adopting a communique that calls for Gaddafi's departure as a political objective and lays out 3 clear military operations. 1. End of attacks and threat of attacks on civilians. 2. The removal of Gaddafi forces. 3. Redacted from original. Basically, something was put in there that they can't show anyone. If it's redacted, it's probably someone important's name. DOJ scuttles terror financing prosecutions. Okay. 15th of April, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the Berlin conference accuses Obama administration of exceeding the UNSC 1973 mandate and the agreements at the Paris summit. What started out as a mission to protect civilians and enforce a no-fly zone has transformed into an effort at regime change without having a clear understanding as the nature of the rebel opposition. That's exactly correct. All the regime change conflicts never amounted to anything but more money into special interest pockets. April 22nd, Amber Lyon reports on CNN, violent put down in Biran uprising. End of April. A large cache of weapons, 40 traced to Operations Fast and Furious, was found in the home of prominent Sinaloa cartel members, Juarez, Mexico. Also found were military-grade weapons difficult to obtain legally in the United States, such as anti-aircraft machine gun and grenade launcher. So he must be having a lot of fun. May 2011. 3rd of May, Eric Holder testifies to the House Judiciary Committee that he did not know who approved Operation Fast and Furious, but that it was being investigated. He also states that he probably heard about Fast and Furious for the first time over the last few weeks, a claim which would later be questioned. Well, think about this, folks. Eric Holder and President Obama were pretty much the only people who could authorize such a operation. So who else did it? Was it your grandma? Was it your dog? Or was it the people who actually have the authority to make that call? It was. Moving on. 5th of May. Secretary Hillary Clinton travels to Rome for a contract group meeting. The contract group establishes a coordinated system and a temporary financial mechanism to funnel money to the National Transitional Council. That's a mouthful. 14 May. An email exchange between Sidney Blumenthal and Cody Scher shows they are negotiating with Tyler Drumheller to contract with General David Grange to send 4 operatives on a week-long mission to Tunis, Tunisia, and to the border of Libya and back. Blumenthal has joined a business partnership with Clinton operative Cody Scher, former CIA official Tony Drumheller, and former Major General in Grange's company, Osprey Global Solutions, that is trying to win a contract with the Libyan jihadists to train and assist them in the Libyan war. Scher writes, Sid, do you think the general has to send 4 guys? He told us 3 guys yesterday, a translator and 2 other guys. I understand the difficulty of the mission and realize that K, a Libyan, will be repaid, but I'm going to need an itemized budget for these guys. All these regime change wars just don't amount to anything. An email from Drumheller to Blumenthal reveals that the trip would cost around $60,000 for 4 people, including someone named Khalifa El Sherif. That's a really odd name if you really put it in perspective, because the Khalifa is the jihadist and Islamist goal. This person is a secret source known as K in some of the Blumenthal's other Libya-related emails to Clinton. 20 May, Washington Post reports Obama ignored the legal deadline set in the 1973 law that required him to obtain congressional approval for U.S. military operations in Libya under the Nixon-era War Powers Resolution. The president must obtain congressional authorization of military action within 60 days or else begin withdrawing forces. So he's ignoring the law at this point now. 29 May. 4 Mexican federal police helicopters attack a drug cartel compound, where they were met with heavy fire, including a .50 caliber rifle. This rifle has been linked to Operation Fast and Furious for something that apparently didn't happen, that the head of the FBI knew nothing about, that the President of the United States knew nothing about. There sure is a lot of occurrences with these weapons. May end. White House recruits Democratic operative Eric Schultz to promote fake news reporting on Fast and Furious and to counter House Oversight Committee's investigative work. Schultz previously worked on Senator Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton. Thank you very much, folks. We will continue with June 2011 in the next video. Stay beautiful.